Planet Lotus Trilogy. From what I've seen on my calendar, it's actually been like nearly a whole year since I last did a long play on my Retro Planet. It's because a lot's been going on. Before I start, there's just a few adjustments I need to make first. So I'm just checking something. I'm viewing this on my alternative screen so I can see how it looks. Alright, and I think that should just about do it. Now let's get it all set up. I'll go for the progress so you can see how it goes. Sorry if the quality is a bit too small, but this is a big screen. I always do the frames per second at 49 so it has that more nostalgic feeling. You'll see what I mean when you hear the sound. Right, the joystick's on. Now for the input. And there we go, that's the controls all set up. Now in case you can't read it, I've currently got Joy 2 on a set to horizontal and vertical for the X-axis and the Y-axis. That's because if you look at the game ports, port 1 counts as Joy 2 and it's attached to the controller here. Now you may have noticed button 2 is assigned to the default fire button. That's because while doing some experiments off screen, I actually kept track of where all the buttons are on this sheet here. So I've set number 9, so when you press the escape button, it returns back to the menu. And if you press 10, that's the pause button. I went through the instructions of the instructions of the book, so I know how it goes. I'll show you a diagram so you know what I mean. You see, the way that I set it up matches this perfectly. We've got the joystick which controls it, the accelerate, pause and quit. Now because I'm doing this on full window, I may have to do some adjustments on the screen, so I'm going to start it up and then use the filter setting so it's set up just right. Right, the game's just starting up. I'm aware that the screen looks a bit wrong. Once I get to a game screen, I'm going to pause it and then use the filters to make sure it's aligned just right. I just want to show you my latest decoration to the arcade machine while I wait for the correct screen. My light up Sonic the Hedgehog. I got this for my birthday a few weeks ago. I'll find somewhere to display it on my next live stream. But as you just saw on the game, we just saw the specs of the car itself. Now next, here come the high scores. The reason I'm waiting for gameplay is just so that way I know how the screen is like when it's full, because the size dimensions on this aren't exactly correct. It'll make more sense once I get to it. Luckily, I remember the filter sizes for Lotus 2 and 3, but not the first one. There we go. Right, let's have a look. Now for the vertical size. Right, just needs to go down a little. There we go, perfect. Alright, let's get to the game. I'm going to play with alternative control, so the fire is speed up and down is slower. It's much easier that way. Put in my name. You can only have like 10 characters on the Lotus 2 and 3 games, but for this one you can make it as big as you want. Whoops, I pressed the wrong button. Bear with me a sec. I was about to start a game with manual gears. I prefer automatic in my opinion. Alright, so like I said, I'm going to play each game for roughly an hour or so, and then I'll switch to the next one. So I'll do Lotus 3 now, Lotus 2 afterwards, then finish it off with Lotus 3. Now, one of the interesting facts I can tell you about this game is, remember those Top Gear games? This is actually the first ever Origins that started the Top Gear legacy for Super Nintendo, before it was later known as Horizon Chase Turbo World Tour for the mobile, and then Horizon Chase Turbo for the consoles. So we have a selection of either sound effects or music. Only downside is that once you pick it, you can't change it. That was fixed in Lotus 3. I'm going to play it with sound so we can hear it. Right, first track, here we go. Italy, flat with gentle curves, no hazards. The one issue that this game has compared to Lotus 2 and 3 is the way that your car just stops dead when it crashes into a collision. Just like that. If you can hear me button mashing, that's actually the best way to take the corners. If you button mash, you will take the corners more easily and you won't lose as much speed. So some of you may know this on Top Gear, how on the bottom screen the computer takes place of the car that's actually your rival. It always gets an unfair advantage of you by rubber banding. Did you know some of the soundtrack on this game was actually recycled on Top Gear? Some from Lotus 2 were even used. Like the end credits from Lotus 2 is actually the start screen for Top Gear. So regarding the first Top Gear game, the one thing that made it different compared to this one was that they actually used four unique cars. However, in Top Gear 2 and 3000, they went back to just the one default car, just like on this one. Only difference is you could change the colour and tune it up. So there we go, first race one. You may have noticed that Nigel Mansell game, that's not actually the name of a real person. They kind of changed it a bit to avoid copyright. Because I can remember when Nigel Mansell used to race for Formula 1 around the 90s. Also, out of all the Lotus games, this is the only one that's actually been on the more ports. Lotus 2 and 3 have been on Amiga, have pretty much been on Amiga overall. And out of all the Lotus games, Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 is the shortest, yet everyone loves it. And I don't blame them. But onto this track, if you may have noticed, hills and slopes are now introduced. hills which will slow your car down, and slopes which will speed it up. And you also notice those roadworks to the left that I avoided. You don't want to run into that or it will slow you down. But at least it gives you a warning, just like that. But in later stages, they won't give you a warning, you pretty much just have to predict what's there. Oh, I was doing so well there too. Now, just because I know all the ropes of Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 doesn't mean I'm a Lotus Trilogy master. Last lap. The good thing about the easy level difficulty level is that the AI don't really put up much of a fight. But on the later stages for the easy, it will start to get a bit tricky. You'll see what I mean on the next one after this. We're already running out of fuel, but we'll make it. But on the next race, you're going to need to refill at least once, otherwise you'll be kicked out and it's over. Another win. So next we have Iceland. Steeper hill and sharper bends, extra fuel needed. That's when you need to go to the pit stop because you won't make it. Of course, another issue with this game, which I remembered someone talking about, was the way that the fuel meter actually beeps quite annoyingly. They fixed that in Lotus 3 by using something that's a bit less annoying. Of course, the AI always just serpentining from left to right. The way that they actually collide into others ahead of them and slow down, I like to call that the relay system. You know, like the 100 meter run from the Olympic Games. When you charge straight into the next person and then they take the baton and continue on while the previous one falls behind. It's kind of like that system. Of course, the only downside about this version is because since the second one is technically for player 2, you only get the first half of the screen. Obviously, that was fixed. So at the end of this lap, I'm going to pull into the pits because, as you can see, I don't have enough fuel to make it. I shouldn't have to worry about the AI catching up, they're going slow. So I want to pull down for slowing down. And that should do it. There's also another thing about this game. The only thing that this game has that the other two don't have are the way that the tail lights actually light up. They do it on this game, but they don't do it on the others. And yes, I have actually seen Leb and Amiga review this game. Of course, they were focusing mainly on the hard level. So after this race, things are going to start getting a bit tougher. Now, between all the Lotus cars from Lotus 3 The Ultimate Challenge, which would you say is your favourite? The Esprit, the Elan Special Edition, or the M200 Automobile? For me, it's the Esprit all the way. That's another race won. But like I said, things are going to start getting a bit tougher now. Spain, some sharp corners, rocks on right side of road. So there's already one tip for you, stay to the left. But because this is easy level, you're not really going to see a lot of rocks. I think your car in this can pretty much just cover approximately 4 miles before it needs a refill at the pits. So there's the rocks. They only cover up just the very right lane. So you're alright in this lane, this lane, this lane, but try to avoid the very end. Regarding the fuel on this game and Lotus 3 The Ultimate Challenge Championship mode, it's actually much easier to tell how much fuel you'll need for Lotus 3. For this one, it's a bit well off. And as you saw, I didn't run into those rocks. Been a while since I played this, I almost forgot. Like I said, if you're hearing a bunch of this, that's me button mashing to make cornering much easier. Of course, this is something very crucial for the other Lotus games as well, let alone this one. I think I might have just enough fuel to make it, but I'll wait till the end of this lap and see what happens. Sure, I could use one of those capture cars, but then you wouldn't see the glory of my Retro Planet arcade cabinet. So you're gonna hear the low fuel warning for very soon, and you'll see what I mean about it starts to get a bit annoying after a while. And there it is. Just as well they made it a less persistent on Lotus 3. The one thing about Lotus 3 is it actually combines the elements of Lotus 1 and 2 combined. A time race when you're up against the clock, and championship when you're racing against the other cars just like this. I probably misjudged that. Oh well. This is actually the perfect time to show you what practice is like. You pretty much get a very long track that's about 10 laps long, but it's a great way to practice, and you can also play with a second player. Oh, and I miscounted, it's actually 12 laps. Now, as far as I can remember about the fuel on this mode, you only have enough fuel to cover 3 laps, which means you need to pit at least 4 times. The good thing about practice mode is there are no white AI cars to get in your way. It's just pretty much you and having a free run. That's one of the unique things about this first game. There's actually a track, so you've got no obstacles or other cars on the road. Lotus 2 and 3 lack that. After I finish this practice, I'm going to attempt easy level again, but I'm going to turn on the soundtrack and tell you, and you'll know what I mean about why you can't change the soundtrack once the game starts. So as you can tell, the practice track is, just as I specificated, it's long. It may be a bit mediocre with all these corners, but it actually makes a great practice ground because at least there's no hills or slopes to slow you down or speed you up. The top speed on this car is also different from the others. On this one, the top speed of the Esprit is 160 miles an hour. On Lotus 2, it's 154, even though the stats say 163. And as for Lotus 3, it's translated into kilometres. So if the car's running low on fuel, better pull into the pits. Because I know there's not enough fuel to cover the next lap. Oh yeah, to get out of the pit, you want to hold the accelerator. I recommend waiting until the fuel is blinking. Just like that, so off we go. I think I can remember on Lotus 3 when you actually had to press up on the joystick in order to get your car moving. I'm actually a bit disappointed how most people actually overshadow this game over Top Gear, despite the fact this is the very first game that started the story of Top Gear, before it was later Horizon Chase Turbo for the 21st century. Now, as far as I can about all the games in order, we've got this, Lotus 2 and Lotus 3, which is what I'm focusing on tonight. Then after these came Top Gear for the Super Nintendo, Top Gear 2, which, unlike the first one, it actually got ported to Super Nintendo, Sega Mega Drive, and the Amiga, although the Super Nintendo was more superior than the others. And as for Top Gear 3000, it's another Super Nintendo exclusive, only this time we have futuristic cars that can exceed over 500 kilometers an hour. And after that game, the game was kind of put on silent, until Aquarix came in 2015 and rebought this racing classic to mobile devices called Horizon Chase World Tour. Then it was ported to Horizon Chase Turbo in 2018 for modern consoles like PS4, Xbox, PC/Steam, and even the Switch. I just remembered I forgot to pit again. But let's see if I can actually make it this time. I doubt it, but it's worth a try. It may not look like it, but even though the Lotus games actually stopped in the 90s, Magnetic Fields, the people who made this game, they also went ahead and made the Network Q RAC Rally for the DOS and Mobile One Rally Championship for the PlayStation and PC. if you compare Mobile One Rally Championship and Network Q RAC Rally, not only are they made by magnetic fields, but they actually replicated the gameplay. If you compare that to yourself, you'll see what I mean. It's just a shame that those games don't have a Lotus Spree. Then again, there are no Lotus rally cars in those games. I'm pretty sure that Lotus Turbocharged 2, despite it being the most popular of the trilogy, I think it was supposed to be sort of like it was supposed to be like a spoof of Sega's famous Outrun, when you race a Ferrari Testarossa over 15 stages. So on this track, I was actually wrong before. You can actually cover 4 laps before you need to fuel up. Otherwise your car will stop, and just like what you saw on Easy, you will come to a complete standstill. Another major difference I've also noticed is, do you see this sort of like light red pinkish like gleam on there? That was actually excluded from Lotus 2 and 3. You can also see that the wheels are always static. You can't see any movement in them, which is why on Lotus 2 they actually had sort of like a grey texture that made it look like the wheels were moving. You'll see what I mean when I start up Lotus 2 after this. So if you were keeping track of my Retro Planet community on my Facebook, if you were keeping an eye on my Retro Planet on YouTube, you will know that my next live stream will be Lemmings, which will be next week around the same time. Well, technically it's daylight savings, which means instead of GMT, it'll be BSL, which stands for British Summertime. Once this is over, I'm going to give the medium cup a try, and then depending on how far I get or I reach the 1 hour border, I will stop and switch to Lotus 2. But for now, the practice is over. Aside practicing with a friend on practice mode, the only downside is that you pretty much do not get entered into the high scores. So I'm going to give medium level a try, and then once time is up, I'm going to switch to the next game. But this time I'm going to stick on one of the soundtracks that will sound familiar to you. Mainly gentle slopes, rocks lying on edges of road. Oh yeah, the music I've actually picked for this is actually the music used on top here when you do the 4th and final race on any country. To those of you that have played Top Gear, this will sound familiar to you, if this is actually the soundtrack for the last race on All Countries. At least the good thing about the warning signs we just saw is we can tell what side of the road the rocks are coming from. Just like that. Apart from only playing music, the skid sound effects and the crash sound effects still play. Of course, these are removed completely on Lotus 3. But yeah, since I've selected this soundtrack, you're pretty much going to be listening to the whole thing while I play medium. Because like I've said before, once you choose the soundtrack for the difficulty, you cannot change it during gameplay. The only way to quit it would be to quit the race by pressing escape. Did you know, when they designed the sprites for this game, the sprites used to make the Lotus cars were actually made in D-Paint, which is like a paint program for the Amiga. Did you also know that regarding the sprite sheet, they're actually unique on the Sega Mega Drive? I'm running low on fuel, but I will make it this time. I'll play for another 20 minutes so then I'll switch to Lotus 2. Alright, so we got rolling hills and sweeping bends. Seems like another lengthy track, which means pit stop is possible. Oh, when I see we've got oil on the edges of the road. The one thing about Horizon Chase Turbo, the 20th car is actually so slow that even if you collide into the other cars, it will take ages to catch up. The good thing about colliding into the cars and signs on Lotus 2 and 3 is they don't slow you down as much. refill up the pits, but I'm not going to do much. And that should do it. I could have pulled out sooner, but better safe than sorry, that's what I say. You probably just noticed those pixel rows to the very edge over there. It's sort of like giving you a glimpse of what's coming up ahead, if you pay attention. See that fuel level? I never would have made it without pulling into the pits once. If you would have also noticed about the fuel, it doesn't actually give you a colour indicator of how much fuel you have, so you just kind of have to risk it. Unlike on Lotus 3, that's actually been fixed. We all know Barry Leach, who composed the music for Lotus Turbo Challenge 2. Well, did you know he also composed the music for Horizon Chase Turbo? Hey up, Dominic C. Glad you could join. I'm just pretty much doing the first Lotus game, then in about 15 minutes or so I'm switching to Lotus 2. So we got Greenland next. So I need to watch out for ore slick on the long bend. The position your car finishes actually reflects whereabouts you start on the next race. First will start you in 20th, second in 19th, third in 18th, and vice versa. But no matter what on these tracks, you must finish 10th or better, otherwise you're disqualified and it's game over. So up to now, I'm in target position to qualify for the next race. Or if you just saw there, the ore slip threw me off the track. I'll remember to keep to the left next time. And luckily the bend is just short before the finish. I don't really know what to say about the whole Hot Wheels mystery machine. I've never really looked at a lot of Hot Wheels products. Then again, if you're talking about the mystery machine from Scooby-Doo, yeah, I enjoyed watching that in my childhood. So the best way to know when the ore slick is coming up is to look for those one world signs. There they are, which means the curve is coming up. And there it is. After this lap, I'm going to pull into the pits, refill, and go for the win. As long as I'm 9th or better, I can qualify for the next race. Alright, that all slick curve is coming up. There it is. And that should do it. It also seems like that the fuel refilling on this game is a lot faster than Lotus 3. Right, the curve's coming up again. Oh, it actually got me. You can actually tell, you'll actually know when a big curve is coming up, because the more chevrons you see, the tighter the turn. The other downside about this game is when you're actually racing, it doesn't actually tell you how many tracks are left. So according to the score, that was my 3rd track. So that means this is the 4th one, Uruguay. Some sharp bends, rocks on downhill section. Ha, Mercedes. That's a funny name. I'm just wondering if that's actually a real location or if they just made up that word. I don't know. And also, Lotus 3 Turbocharged is the only game of a trilogy that actually uses the names of real countries. Lotus 2 and 3 just pretty much focus on random environments. Of course, the one thing that Lotus Turbocharged 2 is famous for are the last 2 tracks, which are difficult, the Marsh and the Storm. I can't tell you how many times I played the Storm course and tried to beat it and once again failed. At least those warnings tell me where the rocks are. So according to the clock, I think I only have time for like 11 more minutes before I move on to the next game. I think that's probably enough for like 2 or 3 more races. I'll end it when time is up, or if I get a game over, whichever comes first. I think for my main advice, it would be best if you stay in the middle of the road when you come to the downhill section where the rocks are. Because here it is. At least the warnings give it, at least the signs actually tell you where it is on that side of the road. Makes it much easier. And there's the leader. You may have noticed I don't really use the brakes when I take corners like this, it's because I can pretty much take it. And also the fact that using brakes on Lotus 2, you pretty much rarely need to use that at all. That is, if you know what you're doing. Here comes the downhill section again. To the left, to the right, to the left, and centre. Whoops. Oh, doesn't matter, I won. Morocco. Bumpy, winding road, no hazards. Oh, I can see Lotus 3 turbocharged signs over there. Interesting fact. On the Sega Mega Drive version of Lotus 3 The Ultimate Challenge, which is called Lotus 2 Rex on that game for some random reason, Lotus 2 Rex is actually an impossible game. You can't beat it without cheat codes. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, sorry, but my controller just froze for no reason. A bit of an intro. Also, something else to point out. I used to play Lotus Turbocharged 2 all the time, but I never played Lotus 3 Turbocharged in my neighbourhood. I just heard about this game when I was playing it on the Atari ST many years ago on an old computer. Oh, that was unfortunate. I'm pretty sure that I can make up for this after I've done the pit stop. And that should do it. See that? I made a comeback. I've never heard of Radical Racer diecast toys from RC2. I have time for one more race and then I'll switch games. So let's see what the last race is going to be for this version of Lotus. Germany, lanes closed, random barriers and water. Oh, that's when the difficulty is really going to start spicing up. And with random barriers, you know that's not going to be a good thing. Another thing regarding the pools compared to the other games, the pools on this one are actually much smaller and less noticeable than in the future games. Oh, they came up quickly. I think those were the lane closure, and I think this is where the random signs come in. Well, at least it's one for each of the lanes. I'll remember that for next time. Oh, I just realised I'm in first place. It's honestly quite surprising. Like I said, I crashed into those closed lanes because the owls came at me so quickly. I'll keep an eye out for them next time. That time I saw them coming. Now for the random signs again. So they're actually quite easy if you know what they are. 3, 1, 4, 2. Looks like I'm going to have to pull into the pits after this lap to keep going. Doesn't really matter if I slow down because it actually helps me navigate around those random signs that are coming up. And here they are. And that should do it. I've never heard of Radical Racer die-cast toys from RC2, but I do know Micro Machines. Yeah, Hasbro recently bought back Micro Machines last fall. They've already released Series 1, 2 and 3, and they just released Series 4 in the US quite some time ago. I did unboxing with Micro Machines Series 3 in the past, and I'm doing another one tomorrow. I'm not going to tell you what they are because I don't want to give you too many spoilers. But if you're watching this in the near future, you'll have to see my next video to find out. Here come the signs again. Don't need a pit stop, I can make it. Ah, I see. The RTL back in 2008. And that's where we're going to stop at the first game. Time for the second one. I can remember the filter for Lotus 2 and 3, so I'm just setting that up. There we go. Now just a simple reset. And there we go. The next game starting up, which is Lotus 2. This game's going to take a while to boot up, so I'll think of something else to talk about until it's ready. If you would have noticed on my video icon, if you just tuned into this, You would have noticed there was a grey number 30 at the bottom middle. It actually marks 30 years since Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 came out. Basically, on Lotus Turbo Challenge 2, you race for a total of 8 tracks, each with unique environments. And you alternate between the Iceland SC, which is new to the game, the Esprit, which is the same car you saw in the previous game, and they alternate between each other. And in order, it goes Forest for the Iceland Special Edition, Night for the Esprit. I'm not going to mention the cars, but they alternate, so they go Fog, Snow, Desert, Motorway, Marsh and Storm. Let's see if I can get through all 8 of them before I switch to the last game of the live stream. Now, when I actually did a blind run about a few weeks ago, I actually managed to break the high score by outscoring the max amount. But one thing I can tell you, I scored over 100 million. I have seen another YouTuber who was able to reach over 150 million, and I respect him for his skills. I'll go through the intro so you can listen to the lovely soundtrack. So I go, this is the new car introduced in Lotus 2. I bet this music takes you back. It certainly does me. It was one of the first games I played next to Lemmings. Now if we have a look at the gameplay, you can see that the wheels on the bottom of the car are you can actually see some animation on them this time. I took out the switch so you can get a good look at it. So apart from that forest environment you saw, we actually have unique environments for the other tracks. Like on this one, we've got the night tracks here, so the visibility is reduced. You will also see that player 2 now has a unique colour car, the white one. Right, that's enough of the music, now to get into the game. Also, unlike the other Lotus games, you can actually hook this one up to another Amiga, which means you can play with not 1, not 2, but a total of 4 players at once. I'm still figuring out how to set that up. Because this game does not accept 10 up to over 11 characters, I just typed in Wretch Planet in short and sweet. Let's see if I can get through all 8 stages at once. If not, I'll continue where I left off at the one that I lost. I've been playing a lot of this, so I know all the ropes and I know what's coming up. One of the biggest improvements you can see is that the frame rate has dramatically improved and we now have a full view of the whole screen. To make matters even more exciting, all the AI cars, they're not using the same white cars, they're actually alternating with different colours. And each stage, they each have exclusive colours. The most common car colours you'll find on this one are red, white and British Racing Green, but I'll just call it dark green. So the unique car colours we have on this track are brown and blue. You probably saw one of them as we were starting. So the hills and slopes are introduced now. Just like on the previous games, hills will slow you down and slopes will speed you up. You don't want to collide into anything while climbing uphill as you'll lose a lot of speed and struggle. The best score I've ever had on the forest track is actually 10 million points. But in order to get that, you have to do a perfect run with no collisions. So now we're going to see logs and rivers introduced. Logs will make your car jump and it will make jumping over streams much easier. Just like this. Here's another fact for you about Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 compared to Lotus 2 Rex for the Mega Drive. On the Mega Drive, the main car colour you play as is switched. So on the Mega Drive, Player 1's car is white and Player 2's car is red. On this one, Player 1's is red and Player 2's is white. And plus, the Mega Drive version actually shows you what the map of all the cars look like and it even pinpoints how far you got before you got a game over. Now there's actually one thing I don't understand about this track that you'll see on the desert track later on. When you actually run into the rocks on the desert, you jump, but when you run into them on this track, you crash and lose speed. The top speed of the land, if you are paying attention, is 133 miles an hour, which just proves that it's a bit slower than the Esprit. But at least it's a good car to get the hang of. And now here comes the last checkpoint. Now on this one, we have rocks introduced. Just like the rocks on the first game, you really don't want to run into them. They won't stall you, they'll just knock you off the track and lose a lot of speed. Now for the next part, I can remember where all the puddles and the rocks are. To the right, to the left, rocks on the right, puddle in the middle, and then rocks on the left. And the logs are left, right, left. Left, right, left. And plus, if you're fast enough, you'll run into a stream at the end. And there it is. So next up we've got the night course, and as you saw during the attraction mode earlier, we have a dark environment and the Esprit is back in this game as well. Now this is the only track on the game to have no hazards or obstacles on the road. But it also means you've got a faster car and tight turns.
Set. Go.
Unlike the starting grid of all the other tracks, you start on the very right instead of near to the left. As you can already tell by the speed, the car is a lot faster and it makes handling the corners a bit trickier. So you're going to be hearing me button mash quite a lot. Just like that. When you come to tight corners, it's recommended that you mash the accelerate button as much as possible. Quicker taps on loose corners, but more slower taps on tighter corners. You'll see what I mean about tighter corners on the desert track later on. So now we have tunnels introduced. It changed the sound effect slightly for that echoed effect. On the Mega Drive, pretty much nearly all the tunnels are taken out on both the motorway and the night track. So this next part, you can actually have the Lotus Spree reach its highest possible max speed. As long as you can get your car up to 150 miles an hour before the section, you'll make it. And here it comes. You can hit 181 easy, and here comes some tricky maneuvers. You gotta be quick on your fingers for these. And just in case you didn't notice, the unique colour cars we have on this track are grey and orange. The colours that are pretty much on every track are the green cars. So we're just approaching the end now. After these corners in the bridge, it's a straight slingshot to the finish.
Congratulations.
And there we go. So next up, here's where things start to get a little bit more difficult. We've got narrow roads, fog on the course, and there's lots of oil slicks. Not to mention there's a corner that will try to throw you off guard. It's near the end. The other thing about this track is the white cars are removed. We've got nothing but the dark green cars this time. On Lotus 3, the Ultimate Challenge, you can only play as the green car if you use the Elan SE or the M200. I'll talk more about Lotus 3 once I've done this. Well, once I've played a bit of Lotus 2 for an hour. now we got some hills introduced. And as you already would have noticed, because of the narrow roads, it's actually much harder to pass the other cars now. But if you study their patterns, you can get past them easily. Something like that. We also have all slick on the track, where just like on the first game, it will slip your car up. But there'll actually be a sound effect to let you know when you've hit one. And here it is. You hear that? At least now you'll know when your car will hit the oarslick and slip up. But if you look at the direction your car's facing, move the car in that, steer it in that direction to recover. And depending on how much time you have on the clock, if you have a lot more than what you did at the start of a checkpoint, it means that you're doing something right. Like right now, we just finished a checkpoint 2 seconds faster than what I got before. The good thing about this track is, it's on the easy section, so it's alright to make a few mistakes. And you would have just noticed that this car can actually fly if you hit one of the bushes off-road. And to be honest, you really don't want to do that, because if you get caught on a tight corner, it's going to get a bit hasty. We're actually coming close to the end now. And there's also what I like to call the April Fool's Day corner. When it tells you to go in one direction, but the corners go in the other. It'll make more sense once I get there. So here comes the starter. There are no chevrons, so you need to time your steering to the right now. And I believe that trig section's coming up right about now. I call it the April Fool's Day corner. You see that? The signs are telling you to go right, but the corner is left. That can really catch you off guard if you don't know what you're doing. That's what I like about this game. It actually allows you to see what's ahead of you, then you know what to do for next time. If you ask me, this game should really do with a bit of a remaster. I truly wouldn't be surprised if Horizon Chase Turbo included something like this for their third DLC, which they're still yet to announce.
Congratulations!
Ooh, just barely made it. I usually play better than that. So next up we have the snow course. And to be expected from the snow course, your car's going to slip and slide all over the place. But, and I'm only going to say this once, or probably another time, but keep a close eye on the road. It will change. So that, as you can see, because this is icy surface, that the steering on the car responds a lot quicker. Another thing I noticed on this track is not only is it fast, but the AI are also a lot more aggressive. So pay attention to the road carefully, as the colours will start to change as I progress. look, if you just saw, it changed right now. You probably just heard I did a bit of slow button mash because that was a tight corner. And here's where the ice puddles are coming in. The ice puddles are pretty much a colour variant of the oil slicks from the fog course. And they respond in the exact same behaviour by slipping you off the road. So now we have some snowdrifts on the road. They don't really do much. If you see them, just stick to the centre of the road to avoid hitting them and to avoid your car from slowing down. And if you were just paying attention, the road changed colours again. Like I said, because your car slips all over the place, you just want to quickly lean left or right. Just like on the Lotus spree game you saw me play earlier, this track's got a lot of bumps all over the place. But I'm glad that on this game, if you actually hit obstacles, you don't just stop almost dead like the previous game. And the road changed colours again. I think that's just about as much as the colours will go now. So now we're on to the last section. If you just saw by the timer, I have over 63 seconds. That's because this is the longest section of the track. And it also means that the finish is nearby. The one thing I like about this track is that it actually has something unique at the end, where there are I'm not going to spoil it, but I'll let you know once I get to it. And here comes the section. It's a full icy road. As to be expected, there's ice all over the track, so you just pretty much have to hold it as long as you can. So now we have one of my favourite tracks on the game, the desert course. Now, as you can tell by some sound effects, we've got some desert creatures. The volume for them keeps increasing and decreasing at random. And on this one, we've actually got cars with unique colours this time. We've got yellow and lime green. It still doesn't make sense to me because if you saw on the intro of the game, the alarm on there is actually yellow, yet the car you drive is red. The desert and the marsh course are the only tracks that have the most checkpoints, totaling 9. This first one, we have tumbleweeds all over the place, and if you see them, you want to try and avoid them as much as you can, because if you hit too many, you'll lose a lot of speed, and there's a likely chance you'll lose the course. Now this is where some tight corners are introduced, so you're going to hear me button mash quite slowly. If I held it all the way, my car would have got thrown clean off the track. Now here's where the tight curves kick in. Watch how quickly my car goes off. Look at that, almost at the edge. But if you let go of accelerate and let go of accelerate and just tap slowly, you'll make it. Easy peasy. And just like when I mentioned something about the logs on the forest track, the rocks do pretty much the same thing. If you face directly towards them, your car will go airborne and jump, although I highly do not recommend it. Because if anything, they'll likely throw you off the track, and you really don't want that. Especially because this is actually the mark of the second half of the whole playthrough. It's just pretty much more tight curves, but we've actually got more palm trees and rocks this time. I guess it's like one of those rock salts. Whenever I see the palm trees, it makes me think of Sega's own Outrun. I think this is what this game was highly based off. Instead of using an Italian sports car, we have 2 British sports cars. And there are also no forks on the road. I am also aware that the Outrun port on the Amiga is absolutely terrible. If it was made on this engine, it would be one heck of a gem to play. Not even Lemon Amiga liked it, and he swore a lot. I know you're hearing me button mash a lot, but it's necessary. We're coming pretty much near the end of the desert track now. There's one more checkpoint after this, and then it's the finish. So as you saw from me, I pretty much just stuck to the left of that section. If you do that, you'll only hit a small amount of tumbleweeds, but you won't lose a lot of speed. Doesn't really matter if you hit the tumbleweeds on this, because corners come at you like there's no tomorrow. And we have a beastly descent here. I think that's the course's way of saying that it's helping me revive some of my speed. But we're pretty much coming to the end now. And there we go, here's the end.
Congratulations.
With 18 seconds to spare. That's got to be a new record for me. Next up is another one of my favourite tracks. I absolutely love this track.
Set. Go.
So the unique cars we've got on this track is dark yellow, lavender and pink. As you can see from the other car on the other side of the road, it's a two-way track. You want to try and avoid the other car on the other side of the road as much as possible. Did you hear that? It honks its horn when you're in the same lane as the car when it comes towards you. But to be honest, you want to avoid the oncoming lane, because dodging the cars coming from in front of you is much harder than trying to dodge the cars that you're actually trying to pass. And as you can tell, because I'm driving on the left-hand side of the lane, then it's obvious that this track was actually held in the UK or Japan, when they drive on the left side of the road. Now I already know that Americans always drive on the right side of the road. Now, this is pretty much the section where flatbed trucks come in. If you drive under them, you'll get an additional yeehaw and also a million points. But their timing is unpredictable, which means it's actually quite difficult to do. And you may have noticed those chevrons in the middle when you actually turn to the left. You want to avoid colliding into them, otherwise you'll lose a lot of speed and slow down greatly. I know I could just bump into the barriers, but unfortunately, if you bump into the barriers of a tunnel, you'll actually lose a lot more speed. You're better off button mashing at the corners instead of just letting the obstacles bounce you back on the road like a bumper car. If you do see the chevrons in the middle like this, you don't want to collide into them, otherwise you'll crash into multiple and slow down to a halt. But this track is very forgiving because it's got lots of downhill sections to help recover your speed and get you back on track. And we're coming up to that section right about now. So you're actually going to see me switch lanes to build up speed. Now I did say not to collide into obstacles off the road, but it's necessary because this section is all downhill. And because you're going downhill, you can recover your speed easy. Interesting fact about this track, on the Atari ST version, the middle part which separates the oncoming from the incoming lanes is actually removed, but it's there because it's slowing your car down. And on the Mega Drive version, this track is actually mirrored. Left is right, right is left, vice versa. And because the Mega Drive version is missing a lot of tunnels, you're going to have a really hard time as it's one of the toughest tracks. And you know what else makes it hard on the Mega Drive version? There are two lanes instead of 3.
Congratulations.
Now that is a fast time. I think I hit 181. Now come the 2 hardest tracks on the game. Believe me when I say this course is no laughing matter. It's hard as heck and will put all your skills to the test. The only unique car colour we have on this track apart from blue is sort of like a light orange. And of course we've got the whole narrow road back from the fog course, which makes it overtaking cars much more difficult. Another part of the track you want to avoid at all costs is coming up now. Look at that, we've got flooded marshes all over the road. You want to keep your car out of this water as much as possible. Because if you do, it will seriously slow you down and you'll more than likely lose than win. So when you come to these sections, avoid going off-road at all costs. And there we go, we got our good old friend the oil slick back. Yeah, they're on this track too. Or they're focusing mainly on making you slip off the road just like that. Now here's where some logs are introduced. Remember how logs were your friends on the forest track? Not here. Dodge this one immediately, but you'll go flying straight into the river. If you saw there, you want to try and get the log that's as close to the river as possible to avoid a major slowdown. Now here's a bit of a strange glitch on that game. You see all those car signs? The cars turn black when you go downhill, but are white when you go uphill. Yeah, on the Mega Drive version, this has actually been fixed. Whereas on the Mega Drive version, the car you see on there is actually white, and it looks like they actually used a Ferrari Testarossa. Now you want to avoid the inner lane and the logs on this one. It's better to just go through the lake and reduce speed than hit a log and hit a bush off-road. If anything, I'm pretty much more or less going in the middle of the track, just like so. Now we've got lots of tight winding curves that will try and put you off and throw you off the track and put you in the water. Now normally some people use brakes on this, but I don't. Once you see the corners going, you want to steer in that direction as soon as possible, just like this. And now we're coming across something unique. We didn't get much time because we have to collect these green cones. They alternate from the left side of the road to the right. And the AI cars don't help because they'll try and put you off.
Extra time. Extra time.
Now here we got the logs back, but pretty much they're more or less your enemy. You want to try and avoid as much of them as possible, except that one for jumping over the lake. Oh, my heart's all... Oh, I can feel my heart racing. It always happens on this track, because here comes the last section.
Extra time.
On this section, you want to go as slow as possible. If you go too fast, you'll miss those green cones. Just like that. But as long as you keep your speed low and stick to the inner lanes and do what I do, you should be golden. We'll accept that.
Extra time.
As long as you collect those and keep going, you should be alright.
Extra time. Extra time. Extra time.
Look at that, I got plenty of time.
Congratulations.
And that's how you do it. This track is all about speed and giving it your all. The one tip I can tell you on this track, apart from studying the rocks, do not miss a single turbo cone. If you miss at least one, that's it. It's over and you've lost. The first section is pretty much a speed section. Avoid collisions and do not slow down at all. On this track, there's only that you pretty much have no room for error. If you screw up badly, that's it. It's over and you've lost. That's to be expected. Now on this one, you can actually give the fire button a bit of a break. Once the turbo starts to run out, quickly press the accelerate button again before it expires. I also like on this track how they actually made the background flash white every now and then to imitate the lightning flash. Back when I was a kid, I was terrified of this track because I didn't really like the flashing thunderstorm. Yeah, I had a fear of thunderstorms years ago, but I conquered it. You would have noticed the rocks on the road here, they pretty much appear on the same side of the track the chevrons do. Hitting that sign was necessary because you need to stick here, and that's why. So now the rocks appear in this order: right, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, right. Finger off the accelerator again. Now here, the rocks are going to appear on the side of the road again. There are no rocks on this corner, so just go on in. But on this one, they appear on the right, so stick to the left. Now this is the part I can never really perfect. This is a tough section to maneuver. I have some people done it, but it is much harder than it looks. Now it's crucial you don't miss a single turbo here, otherwise you will be in trouble. But because of how fast you're going, it's very easy to miss them. There we go, got them all. Now I'm actually going to have a chance to beat this track. There you go, that's how it's done. There you go, that's how it's done. And that there is game completion. And we've got this nice music to listen to. I'll be right back, so while I'm gone, I'll let you listen to this music. Alright, I'm back. Let's resume. Now, you would have noticed, just pause it for a sec, even though I already scored over 100,000, I actually beat the 99 million mark, which means my score got reduced a bit and it put me in 9th place right here. That's only because I broke the scoreboard. So since I still have some time left, I think I'll show you a couple of cheats. The first one, which everyone probably already knows, is this. If you put in turpentine, you're given unlimited time on all the tracks. You see that timer up there? Now, when you usually play the forest course, you usually start off with 70 seconds. But because I activated turpentine, the turpentine gives you unlimited time, and that means you can complete the course without getting a game over. However, you won't get your scores into the high score table because you know what they say, cheaters never win. So that's that one done. I'm just looking up something. Be right back. There we go. I was just checking something. This next cheat will allow me to move on to the next track if I get a timeout. So the decider cheat code I put in, it allows me to move on to the next track when I get a timeout. I'm going to slack off a bit and then I'll show you what I mean when the timer runs out. So even though I don't have a lot of time left, I'm just showing you what the decide cheat code does. And of course, to disable the cheat codes and go back to the menu, you want to press the escape button on your keyboard. Now watch this. Now usually when you get out of time, you get a game over screen. But because you've activated decide, boom, you move on to the next track immediately. Now there's just one more cheat code I want to show you before I move on to the last game of the live stream. So you want to type in this. If you type in ducks, it will take you to a secret minigame. I'm aware the screen is cropped off of it, but this is just a demonstration. And of course, the only way to get the Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 game back is to completely reset the Amiga. But I'm not going to do that. Because next, we've got the last game of the live stream. Which is Lotus 3, the Ultimate Challenge. So now we're moving on to the third and final game of the Lotus Trilogy. I'm just going to skip that. Now, unlike the other Lotus games, this one actually requires a second disc to load. And it's going to come up right about now. So you want to type... It's taking a bit longer than I thought. So while I wait, I will tell you that Lotus 3 The Ultimate Challenge combines the elements of Lotus 3 Turbo Challenge and Lotus Turbo Challenge 2. Now, I have already included a save state to instantly jump ahead, but I thought you might want to see what the loading title screen looks like. So it's now promoted me to switch into disc 2. So if I switch the drive to disc 2, then press fire, we're in. So now you get to see the intro from Lotus 3 The Ultimate Challenge. I'll shut up so you can take a listen. So because this game is supposed to combine the elements of Lotus 1 and 2, despite it supposedly to be all those combined, it's not as successful as its previous installment, being Lotus Turbo Challenge 2. Apart from picking any track, customizing our own tracks, we can see that we now have a third new car, the M200 automobile. And as you can see, there are actually 3 cars we get to pick from: the Esprit, the Elan, or the new M200 exclusive to this game. And of course, on 2-player mode, the second player actually gets an exclusive colour. Regarding the said exclusive colour, the second player will actually get a colour variant of the one that player 1 picked. If you play as the Elan, player 2's car will be green. If you play as the Esprit, the player 2's car will be white, just like in the previous game. And if player 1's car is green, then player 2's, as you saw on the previous one, is red. Now here's a bit of an interesting fact here about 2 wrecks for the Sega Mega Drive. We all know that the game is impossible, but on that version of the game, the second player's car actually changes colours on different tracks. So if you may have noticed about the HUD up here, we've got fuel, position and track length, which is mixed together from the first Lotus game. I'll jump into some gameplay and then I'll show you the Rex feature, which allows you to make your own track. Also, unlike the previous Lotus games, you can pick any car you want. So I'll choose Time Race on easy difficulty. Oh, also, the only downside about this game is there is no link play for a max of 4 players. So now we have a choice of 3 cars. We've got the Esprit, which has been pretty much in every Lotus game, the Elan, which was introduced in Lotus 2, and the exclusive M200 automobile. So I'll go with the M200. Remember this screen where you could choose your own music from the first Lotus game? Well, you can actually choose your own soundtrack in between tracks. So let's pick soundtrack 2, for example, which is my favourite. And of course we've got the race details here. Oh, that's not the name of the track, it's a bunch of random letters, which is the code to playing this track. All the random numbers generate different obstacles on the track, such as like corners, straights. The length of the track and the number is for difficulty. 00 being easy and 99 being hard. What I really like about the Fuge track is that the colour checkered pattern, it actually tells you when you're getting close to the next checkpoint. And of course, the one thing I like about this track is the turbo zone, which gives your car infinite speed for a short time as long as you're on it. Of course, those lasers are random. You don't want to run into them, otherwise they'll throw your car off. I can remember on in which they allow you play as, it's actually different, whereas on PC and the Mega Drive, it's yellow. And of course, on the DOS version, instead of the Esprit, which is the red car, we have an Esprit S4, which is a purple car with 2 rear wings. Now, I'm not going to play through a full track with just one car. I'm going to alternate between cars and show you some of the features that were improved from the previous Lotus games. I still prefer Lotus Turbo Challenge 2 over this because it's got a challenge. And just like on the second Lotus game, we're up against a time limit, but this time we can actually see how much the progress we've done. So now, unlike the first Lotus game, we can actually choose what track we want before we move on to the next track. I'm going to switch back to the sound effects. And this time we've got a rally track. If anything, it combines the elements of the fog course and the snow course combined. The tedious narrow section of the fog course and slipping all over the place on the snow track. But hey, this is a rally dirt road, so you're expected to slip and slide all over the place. There's only one thing I don't really like about the point A and point B tracks on this game. The AI cars are always faster than you no matter what. Even though it looks like you can pass them, just wait until you see later on as I progress. That means even when my car's running at top speed, they're still slightly quicker than me, which makes no sense. They never did that on the first game, or shall I say Lotus 2. Like I said, it's like a mix of the snow and fog courses combined. The tedious narrow lanes of the fog course and the slippery terrain of the snow course. Only because we're on a dirt road, you can't really hear the tyres squeal when you race around the corners. Let alone those dirt patches you saw. You see how that dark purple car kept up with me? That's an example of unfair AI on the time track. Oh, it's just as well we don't do this on championship mode, otherwise this would make the game impossible. The game's pretty much impossible on timed mode on the Mega Drive because it's pretty much unfair. Now the reason the Mega Drive version of Lotus Turbocharger Lotus 2 wrecks is so much harder is because the car accelerates a lot slower, and because of the increased frame rate, it means that the timer is actually more or less against you. So on Lotus 2 I can actually pass these cars easily, but on Lotus 3 they're actually a bit faster than you, which means they're much harder to pass. Some of the AI cars are even faster than you, even at max speed. They can even outrace you on the future track as well. I actually did some testing off screen, and if you actually drive in a straight line without causing any collisions, the AI actually goes the same speed as you. Also, remember when I said there was a bit of a fuel factor on Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge? How you couldn't tell how much fuel you had or how much you had to go with? Well, on this game, I actually know something to know how much fuel you have and how long it will last. But of course, the car you pick also affects the difficulty. The Elan SC is easy, the M200 is normal, and the Esprit is hard. That's enough of the M200. Let's do some gameplay with the Elan Special Edition now. So this time we're going to switch to Championship. And this time I'll use the Esprit Turbo SE. As stated before, the faster the car, the harder the game, so this car is actually giving me the hardest difficulty. I'm keeping the sound effects on because some tracks have actually got some unique sound effects, such as this one. This one's actually got, as you can hear, the wind, which means when the wind kicks in, it will actually blow your car off the track. Which reminds me of the I'll explain more about that during the race. Can't talk while music is over because it's kind of distracting. See how fast those tumbleweeds are going? That's the wind speed. And take a close listen to the whistling. It will tell you how strong or weak it is. Just like the desert creatures from the desert course, it's random so it can kick in when you least expect it. The wind has stopped now. And it's coming back. If you can already tell by the hub on the very top right of the screen, that red bar, that green bar is actually your fuel, the number is actually your position, and those red bars tell you your progress. Can you see how my car is going constantly right, but I'm not holding it? That's the wind pushing the car. Yet it doesn't affect the AI, which is kind of strange. So basically on this track, the wind is actually helping you on some tight right curves. On the Mega Drive version, when you actually do Lotus 2 Rex on the first easy set timed race, you start on the desert track instead of the futuristic track. But yeah, the wind on this track reminds me of the Death Wind tracks from F-Zero and also the desert environment from Mario Kart Live. Because on the Death Wind tracks from F-Zero, the wind actually pushes your jet off the track, so you have to race at an awkward angle to fight it. You hear that low fuel sound? It's much better than what it was like in the first game. The first one was kind of annoying, but the second one, it's actually a lot more calmer now. And look at that, they've recycled some names from the first Lotus game. Nigel Mainsail, which I believe is supposed to be sort of like... No. I forgot it now. Doesn't matter. Now, telling how much fuel you have on this game is actually much easier. of this game, your car can do 10.500 kilometers. Since this is 3.022 and 4 laps, it totals up to 12.088. So you're not going to make it without a pit stop. If you want to win this track, then you'll need to pit at least once. I recommend doing it just as you start the 3rd lap. When I watched a YouTuber review this on the Atari ST version, there's actually something I noticed. He played as the Iceland Special Edition on this track, yet the sprite of all the cars were Lotus Esprits, but they changed them to the Iceland Sea once he got closer to them. Remember on the motorway track on Lotus 2 when you were driving on the left side of the lane? Well, on this one, it switched to the right. I'll show you what I mean later. You would have already noticed that the famous Marks Set Go has been removed. All the sound banks on this game have been removed. And at the start instead we have a 3, 2, 1 go with the flag waving on a separate panel, just like Jaguar XJ220. And of course Jaguar XJ220 was built around the same engine as the Lotus games as well. Other games I also remembered seeing from the company Magnetic Fields was called Supercars. When you have these sort of like top-down racing games just like Micro Machines, only you can customise your car with all sorts of weaponry, engine upgrades and more. And not to mention that the cars on that game actually looked more like an Alfa Romeo, yet it says the cars can exceed speed limits of up to over 200 miles an hour. I think that was sort of like an illusional purse, because there's no way that a car around the 90s would have exceeded over 200 miles an hour, let alone the McLaren F1. Getting out the pit stop on this game is a lot different than the first one. On the first one, you could usually just hold the accelerate button to get out, but to get out, you actually have to push up on the joystick. But if you're playing with the joystick, you have to press the fire button to get out the pits. When it comes to fuel on this game, the cars on this game can only have fuel of up to 10.500 kilometers. Which means if a track totals more than 10.500 kilometers, then it means you're going to have to pull into the pits in order to continue. That's enough of the Esprit. Now for the Iceland Sea, and also to try some other tracks. Played as the M200 and the Esprit Turbo, now for the Iceland Special Edition. You can already tell what game mode you're playing just by looking at the symbols up there. If it's a trophy, it's championship, but if it's a stopwatch, it means you're up against the clock. So for trophies is like from Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge, and for stopwatches is from Lotus Turbo Challenge 2. This game combines them together. One of the major differences on this compared to Lotus 2 is instead of playing with the red Iceland Super Special Edition, we've got a white one this time. Now on Lotus 3 The Ultimate Challenge, you get the white Esprit on the Atari ST and Amiga versions, but on the DOS and Mega Drive versions, the Iceland C is yellow. So once again we've got the windy environment with the wind trying to push us off the track. And of course you can tell the wind speed just by looking at the way that the weeds are being blown across the track. This is the same kind of scenario you get yourself into on the Mario Kart Live Desert environment or the F-Zero Deathwind tracks. I would have really liked gimmicks like this on Horizon Chase Turbo since it's supposed to replicate this kind of gameplay. Of course, when you actually select timed mode, you would have noticed you do have a lot of time on the laps. That's because as you progress through the race, the more laps there are, the less time you get added to the clock. Which means even though it looks like you can just go off at your own pace at the beginning of the race, I don't recommend it. Because not a lot of digits get added, it just means that because not a lot of digits get added later on in the race, it doesn't mean that you can just slack off. You really need to give it your all and try to screw up as least as possible. So when you're doing time races on long tracks, there's no slacking off. If anything, it's almost as hard as the storm track from Lotus 2. Which is a track so difficult, you literally have to perfect everything in order to win. But that's easier said than done with all the swerving curves, cars, and especially those rocks in the way. I already explained my hints and tips when I played Lotus 2 earlier, so if you're seeing this in the future, rewind this video to go back and listen to my hints and tips on how to beat Lotus 2. I have over 90 seconds left. That's because this is one of the easiest tracks on the game. But of course, if you noticed all those random letters at the start of the track along with the numbers, it's the way that the track was built and the number determines the difficulty. The number determines how fast the AI cars go, and also how much time you have on the clock. I still would have wished that they didn't do the whole the AI are faster than you on time mode. And also, just like the score from Lotus Turbo Challenge 2, they haven't added a digit allowing you to score more than 100 million. If you score more than 100 million on this game, the score will reset once you break the 99 million barrier. I'll play one more track and then I'll show you what the whole Rex thing is, called Racing I can't remember what it was, but it was something similar. If you've played Zool, Ninja of the Nth Dimension, that soundtrack will sound familiar to you. The people who made this game are also the same people that made Zool, Ninja of the Nth Dimension. I do know one specific soundtrack that comes straight from Zool, Ninja of the Nth Dimension, which I'll show you when I show off Rex after this track. For some strange reason, this one and Metal Gear, this one and Metal Machine are actually removed from the Mega Drive version. I don't know why. As you can tell by the red coming on this white car, these sprites are obviously recycled from the second Lotus game. Because of the second Lotus game, they actually forgot to change some of the red pixels to white for player 2's car, or in this case, the white car. This is what I mean about unfair AI on speed tracks like this. They're faster than you. But luckily they don't do this on Championship, otherwise it would make the game pretty much unbeatable. Because some of the AI cars are faster than you, it means they can pop out of nowhere and truly take you by surprise. Just like what the orange car did. That's enough of that. Now let's see what the construction Rex is all about. After I've done a bit of this, I'll end the live stream. I'll turn off the music so you can hear me talk properly. So the one thing about the Constructor X is you can pretty much set up your own track and your own environment to anything you want. Types such as like from A to B, like on Lotus Turbo Challenge 2, or a lap race just like on Lotus Esprit Turbo Challenge. We've got all of these here so you can adjust it to anything you want and even the difficulty. Which of course, in order to activate this, you have to hold the fire button and then press left and right to choose. I'll start with a basic sprint desert track. So in order from left to right, just so you get the symbols, we've got the rally track, the futuristic track, the night track, the marsh track, the mountain track, the snow track, the construction track, the rain flash thunderstorm track, the desert track, the fog track, the motorway track, known as the interstate in the US, the wind track, and the forest track. So I think I'll give it, say, about 36% curves, and I'll make them really sharp. And I think I'll make the length about, I don't want to make it too long, so I'll say about 44. I'll include a few hills with quite a lot of steepness, but we also want quite a lot of scenery with little scatter and quite a lot of obstacles. And for difficulty, I'm going to say 64. So there we go, that's the code for our track. But to play this track, you have to select this track symbol. This other one here is a question mark, and that's where you put into fine to sign up your own tracks. And I think I'll go for championship. Like I said, it doesn't matter whether I win or lose, it's just it's just so I can show you what it's like when you customize your tracks. Now remember when I said that this game actually recycles music from Zool Ninja of the Nth Dimension? This will sound familiar to Super Nintendo players. We could already tell this was a track I made because it said user-defined course. And because the length of the track is below 10.500 kilometers, we can do it in one shot without pulling into the pits. Like I said, it doesn't matter whether I win or lose, it's just an example of what it's like when you customize your own tracks. But of course, on user-defined tracks, it just means you won't be able to put your name on the high scores. One of the tracks on Championship that can really give you a hard time is the Construction Works tracks. Now the one thing about the tight tracks is the corners are only really tight on the desert tracks. Still doesn't make sense how you can make whatever tracks you want. If you did that in real life, just imagine how much you might be harming the environment. But hey, this is just a video game. That was a short section. I don't think I'll finish first, but it doesn't matter. Oh, almost made it to first. But that's the beauty of it, you can customise the track to anything you want. This time I'll try some laps on the motorway. Although on this game it's more of the interstate. We'll make the curves not so sharp and include only a small margin. Make the track pretty lengthy. Maybe reduce steepness a bit, but increase the hills. A bit less scenery. Go for a lot more scatter and less of say half obstacles. And for the difficulty, I'll go for 49. This time we'll try a timed race. Because this is a 10-lap race, it means that the track is technically over 23 kilometres. If this was if this was actually championship mode, you would have had to pit like about 12 times. Do you see any major changes compared to Lotus 2? You're driving on the right side of the lane this time instead of the left, so that means, yep, this time you're in the USA and not the UK or Japan. I'm not so sure if the Australians drive on the left side of the road. I'll have to look it up. But on this one, we just basically have a 10-lap race all over the interstate. I can't say motorway because motorway is what it's called in the UK, and because we're driving on the right side of the road, it pretty much speaks itself. Let's see if those cars still have those classic horn sounds. Yep, they're recycled too. And remember how you get a yeehaw if you drive underneath a flatbed truck? On this one, you just get sort of like this buzz noise, which is the same sound effect you get when you enter a turbo zone on the future tracks. You didn't hear that earlier because I was playing music over it, but when I do a future track, I'll turn on the sound effects so you can take a listen for yourself. I'm actually quite surprised how there's only one lane for a flatbed truck on this track. This track seems a bit mediocre in my opinion. The cars are going quite slow because I've set the difficulty to 49, which is just pretty much medium level. I think by the looks of it, it looked like I just outscored the timer there. You know how it says 99? We'll keep an eye on it because as it progresses, I'm going to start building up less and less time. The live stream will be ending in about 20 minutes, just so you know. I don't really understand why on this game they actually changed the miles per hour to kilometres, and on the motorway track you're driving on the right side of the lane instead of the left. But I have noticed that those white and grey cones, say those over there, there's actually a lot less on this one, or maybe it's the way I made the track. After this track, I'll do one more future track to finish off the live stream. So that way you can hear all the sound effects of the future track for yourself. Maybe I should have increased the difficulty on this slightly. But if you would have noticed, the timer is still giving me up to 99 seconds. But just watch, because as I progress, the timer will start to pick up less seconds, making it more harder and tedious as I come close to the end. When I was doing some tests on this game regarding the time limits, it's actually easier what they say. The slower cars are much easier, so you have more time. But the faster cars are much harder. The time is still giving me max digits. Maybe it's because I'm using an easy car and the fact that the track is on medium difficulty. Maybe that's it. Or maybe I'm just too good at the game. I don't know. Oh, also another thing that all the Lotus games lacked that the Top Gear games had was a map so you could tell where you were. Oh, did you see that? The timer had 1 less second, which means it's starting to get a bit harder now. We had even less time this time. The previous one said 98 and this one said 94. This is what happens when you choose a long circuit track on high difficulty. It makes it much harder. The timer gave me even less time again. This time it gave me 8 seconds less. This is what happens when you do long lap races on this game. The digits build up less and less time until it gets so short you'll pretty much reach a game over. That is, unless you know how to perfect the track. And there we go, custom track beat. I've chosen the Lotus Free so you can see how much more tighter and strict the time limits get. Because I've set the difficulty to 99, it means either perfect performance or it's game over. I'm more than likely to get to game over since I told it to include quite a lot of obstacles. If I either complete this track or I get a game over, the live stream will end. Those things over there are actually magnets. They pull your car in. And of course, those laces there are actually quite annoying. They can the one thing about the laces is that they're random, so they can strike you at any time without warning. So if you may have noticed, we didn't get a lot of time added. But if you heard that, but that's what happens when you go under a flatbed truck. The timer is actually being generous, but that's what it's like early in the race. It'll start to get a lot harder as I get closer to the end. You'll see what I mean when those start filling up. The most relief thing about a turbo zone is you can let go of the accelerator to rest your fingers for a bit. You may have noticed I didn't really steer a lot. That's because those magnets on the side of the track will pull your car in, which will make cornering much easier. But if the corners are tight, that's when you have to try and force yourself away from it. Because because of all the magnets, you really need to steer on this track. The time is still giving me a lot of time, so that's actually a good start. Oh, I knew that was going to happen. It's not giving me as much time, which means that the difficulty's really started to pick up now. If you think this track is easy and you can beat it, I think I would like to see that you give it a try. I like how the turbo zone helps me instantly recover. You know, whenever I look at that city in the background, it reminds me of Bubble City from Road Blasters. I'm so surprised our World of Longplay hasn't done a long play of Road Blasters in years. I am aware the Amiga port of Road Blasters is terrible, but I really like the soundtrack. And yes, I'm serious. I don't think I'm going to beat this course, but at least it gives you the idea of just how difficult this game is. If you ever play this game on hard mode, I highly recommend using the Iceland Special Edition. Nope, I'm definitely not going to make it. The timer only gave me 8 seconds that time. And I think it takes me like 20-30 seconds or so to complete the lap. So I think it's pretty much game over for me. Oh, not bad. I did 12 out of 14. Not mad despite the fact this was max difficulty. So I'm just doing something. Well, I hope you enjoyed my live stream of the Lotus Trilogy this week. Next week at 7 o'clock British Standard Time, I'll be doing a live stream of Lemmings. That means I'll be playing the original Lemmings and Oh No More Lemmings. So thanks for tuning into my live stream, and I hope you'll tune in for my Lemmings live stream next week. So I hope you enjoyed it, and and hopefully I'll see you in the live stream next week. But before that, tomorrow I'm going to be doing an unboxing of my Micro Machine Series 3. So make sure you stay tuned to that. Until then, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, and I hope you had a good time watching this.